Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
How about try Purple Access on for size? That's right, it's Thursday, so it's Zulgad, Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist, and producer AJ Declan is out with a well-deserved vacation on his docket. So AJ filling the void. Of course, this show is brought to you, as always, by Surly Brewing Company. Chip and I both huge fans of the Furious, and don't forget, the summer of Surly is just around the corner. Chip Scoggins, Tuesday, summer starts, and by TCL. Enjoy more with TCL. If you're not watching sports on a TCL TV, what are you doing? TCL television. All right, Chip Scoggins, we are now in what is, I guess, technically the dead period where the Vikings are off. The coaches hope players don't get in trouble. We don't know the training camp dates yet, but I think they're going to probably start around the first, or I should say the last Saturday of July. I want to start you with this question, though. So we've clearly seen the springtime camps; those are done. The expectations are intriguing. We don't know a ton yet, but I want to start on defense. Give me a couple of players, a couple of established players that you expect to really benefit and rebound. So beyond like Hunter, who was playing great until he got hurt in, I think it was the 7th game of the season against Dallas. But give me a few players that you expect will bounce back after not bad years, but playing in a bad defense, probably not what we would have expected from them.
Yeah, I would think I would start with Harrison Smith. And, I don't think I wouldn't sit here and say he had a bad year last year.
Right.
But it wasn't the Harrison Smith that we've come to expect, right? Now, how much of that is you're just getting older, right? And you're not going to be the same player as you get older. How much of that was just a drain of losing and being surrounded by young players that he was trying to overcompensate to help maybe do more than he probably should have been doing because he didn't trust the guys around him. So it's funny when OConnell came in here, or was it might have been Kwesi. Yeah, it's Kwesi's first press conference. He singled Harrison out as this is a guy we absolutely need to be part of our defense before he even knew. Well, I guess he probably knew who he wanted to hire as the defense coordinator, but I think Harrison probably to me is the number one guy that he's going to be moved around in this offense. I bet, or in this defense, I bet they give him a lot of latitude to do different things. He's going to be surrounded by better players. Patrick Peterson's back.
Yep.
Dantzler is going to be, you would think, improved and probably have a more confidence after I think Zimmer probably took a lot of his confidence from him early in the year last year.
Yep.
So to me, I think Harrison fits the profile of the guy who I think, as long as he's healthy and hasn't hit a cliff, which I don't think he has.
I agree.
He's slowed down probably a little bit, but I wouldn't say he's hit the cliff. I think he's going to be the one guy you see kind of rebound in this defense.
I think that's a perfect one too, because while he's not young, I also think, and this was a fundamental flaw, not caused by guys being hurt, but caused by decisions.
Yeah.
The secondary, it had some decent players, but it also had, a guy like Bashaud Breeland who was just awful. And so I think you're probably right. I think if you go back and look, what you would probably find with Smith got himself out of position for him by trying to cover for a guy like Bashaud. So that to me is a natural one. And if Scene is as good as it sounds like he can potentially be and gets plugged in there, I think you see things at least start to go back to the secondary being in its entirety competitive. Now, Peterson to me is intriguing because he's not who he once was, and he is, a little bit long in the tooth. But all of that being said, I could completely see Harrison Smith at his age rebounding and being really good again.
Yeah, and you would think that too, as close as he was with Zimmer, and that was his guy, right? I mean,
right.
Zim loved Harrison, and Harrison loved him, and the defense. I'm sure for him, this is a kind of a fresh start too, to kind of be invigorating. a new system, new coaching, just kind of a whole new philosophy. So I think that'll probably be good for him. Peterson, I'm interested to see because he just didn't get really tested that much. Teams just didn't have to.
Because Breland was across from him for the portion of the season.
Breland was so bad on the other side,
mm-hmm.
and quarterbacks just picked on everyone else and didn't even really go at Patrick Peterson. So I'm curious to see, does that continue? With Dantzler over there now, with
I don't think it does, Chip.
I don't know. I mean, it just felt like he never got early on. It felt like he never got thrown at. And the other one I'm curious to see is Cam Bynum. I mean, does he hold on to the job in training camp, or is it one of those things where, okay, OTAs and minicamp, we're not putting Scene in there. You're not going to put a rookie ahead of even a guy who's just been there 1 year.
Right.
Does he beat Bynum out in training camp? Do they give him that opportunity to run with the ones? I'm curious to see how that shakes out.
Well, and all three of them, I mean, Smith, Scene, Bynum could all play too. Sure,
yeah.
Because that's the thing. The linebackers look like safeties now, and vice versa as well. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they played what is considered, I think, fundamentally dime at times.
Yeah,
with three safeties.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Shock me.
And I don't know, like, how many, what percentage of the snaps that they're in that, but there's something clear that they're going to look at. Kendricks was just beat up. I wouldn't say, he's on the field, he's still really good, but how does he look in this new defense?
That's a good, yeah.
Bringing Jordan Hicks to play beside him, a veteran who's widely respected, really smart guy. I mean, the interviews we've had with him, you can tell he's very mature and just understands the league and the game. So I think that's going to be a pretty good combination too. But Kendricks has been one of the best linebackers in pro football for a couple of years here, and can he still be that in this scheme? His skill set is such that he's kind of the linebacker mode that you're looking for. Coverage, a guy who's really good in pass coverage.
Yep.
Tackling machine. So I'm curious to see how he comes back too.
So I'm pretty confident that Smith is going to come back really good. Like I think that he is. I think he's at a stage of his career to what you were saying, where he's not who he once was, but he's still damn good and he's really, really smart. Kendricks intrigues me because, one, I'm curious, how badly has he just been beaten up? Because at some point in time, guys just go off cliffs. Yeah. There were times last year where Kendricks, to me, looked tired. That being said, the front line, especially after Hunter was hurt in the Dallas game, the front line and that run defense was so bad, and those guys were on top of Kendricks immediately. And the thing that I will say for Kendricks is there were still times where he picked off passes, where he made plays that linebackers don't make. So I can't decide, is he old and beat up, or is he going to bounce back too? I think I'm more on the side of, I think Smith bounces back for sure and plays really well. Kendricks, I'm curious about, but there's still something there, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I 100% agree with your point that you wonder how much having just a terrible line impacted him and got him more beat up where he couldn't fly around and kind of use his speed. And think about it too, is like he's had a ton of tackles and been on the field a lot the last 4 years, right? 5 year, whatever it is. So there is some probably wear and tear, and we've seen him deal with injuries. But if they solidify that line, which I think they have, you would think that that's going to free him up to be the Eric Kendricks of what we're used to seeing, right?
Yes.
As long as there's not so much wear and tear on his body, which he seems to be a guy that takes great care of himself.
I'm just talking about attrition, though.
Yeah, you can't beat age.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, you can't beat age and the amount of punishment his body's taken. But but I think I would put him on the same level with Harrison in terms of my expectations of really thriving in this defense.
He made a pick last year. Was it against the Lions at home? There was one game where he dropped back into coverage and just made a phenomenal play, and it was like a safety. And I thought, okay, if you can make that play still at your age, there's something there still.
Yeah, was it last year or the year before where they played the Texans down in Houston? That was 2 years ago, right?
2 years ago.
That to me, that play was still, to me, like the signature play I remember from him, where he's in coverage underneath and Deshaun Watson rolls out and he's free. There's nothing but open grass there. And Kendricks has to decide whether he runs up and tries to make the tackle or stay in coverage. And he kind of faked and stayed in coverage, and Deshaun Watson threw it, and he made this he lunged to his right, made it interception. It's like, I don't know how many linebackers are going to make that play, right? Or athletic enough, or have the instincts that can do that. And so,
correct.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, early in the season. But that to me is like, that's a special skill set that he has, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure Donatel and Pettin and this coaching staff is going to figure out a way to maximize that. And I think you've hit the point square on the head, is like shoring up the defensive line is a big step towards that.
Absolutely huge. And you know what that play was, Chip Scoggins? That was the type of play that deserves a toast. And when you're toasting a great play in football, some people go champagne, some people go wine. Judd and Chip, what do we go, Chip Scoggins? When we want to toast a great play, what do we toast?
100% of the time it's Surly Furious. And you said it's a summer. Surly Furious is fall, winter.
Oh, yeah.
Spring.
No, I'm talking the Supremes, my man. The Supremes, the summer of Surly is here. But yes, for us old codgers, Furious, it's there 12 months a year.
365.
and I went out on Saturday, got the tall boys. I found them.
Tall boys?
A little hard to find, but I found them. And you know, Chip, you are 1,000% correct. Yes. The tall boys are just the best. I love the tall boys.
I know in your neck of the woods, it's a little bit harder to find mine. I have a go-to place. I get them every time. And you have to make more trips. I will say that. You have to make more trips to the store to get the four-pack.
It's worth it.
But it's worth it. Go out of your way. I'll drive 10 minutes out of the way to get the 4-pack.
That's a man. That's a very smart man, Chip Scoggins. He knows what he's talking about. Surly Brewing, they have created the perfect products when it comes to beer. All right. Offensively, I want to shift to Dalvin Cook, Chip. And I was talking about this with Phil today. And the more I think about it, the more I think I can articulate what I want to see from Cook. Because, I mean, one, he's banged up. There's no question. He gets hurt a lot. Two, there's no question that when healthy, he's a fantastic player. Here's what I want to see. You know, Zimmer and company, and I'm not surprised, but they relied on him to sort of be the bell cow, right? You know, second 13. Well, let's get out of this with Dalvin. Third and 3. Let's give it to Dalvin. Here's what I've decided I want to see, and I think it's plausible too. I want to see Dalvin not used as a bell cow. I don't think Dalvin needs to play as many snaps. I don't think he needs to be out there to do all of the basically what they consider to be important runs. I want to see him maximize to his talents. And by that, I mean, I want to see him, when he's used the majority of the time, I want to see him have the ability to maximize his catching talents, rushing talents. I feel that there was a 1970s approach, you know, Earl Campbell, right? He's going to get the ball. I don't need that. What I need to see him utilized in the best way possible, because I want to keep him on the field and, most importantly, be able to show his explosiveness more in situational awareness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't even think his snaps have to go down. I just think his snaps have to change. And in the way they employ him. And you're right. So much of his career has been ball control, move the chains, get first downs. And so if it's, you know, 2nd and 2, which is a great time to take a shot or throw the ball, it's no, give it to Dalvin. He'll get us the first down and we get a fresh set of downs and keep that clock moving. Right. Yep. Like, I understand there's value in that. You know, I understand what Zimmer's kind of the old school mentality thinking there, but you're right. It's like that wear and tear is going to lead to him on the sideline. And so if you can get him out in pass coverage, because he can catch the ball, If you can get him out, in pass patterns, he can catch the ball. If you can find ways to, because he's a special talent, use it. And I think O'Connell and them and his staff will do that. That it doesn't have to be just hand off to Dalvin. That's the only way he's going to be effective, right? Give him the ball 25 times. So if 18 to 20 carries, target him, however many times, 3-4 times in a game. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be, you'll be able to maximize his skill set and his just explosiveness. And to me, yes, you want to have him, and I understand the thinking because he is so unique and you feel like every time he touches it, he has that potential to pop a home run. But you have to be creative and smart about that and understand that there's a diminishing returns in there somewhere too, probably,
Most definitely.
And so much of this offense has been built around him and starts with him, and he's the guy. And that now it's shifting. It's going to be built around JJ and the passing game and Cousins, and not ignoring Dalvin, but finding how he fits in there as a 1A piece or the secondary piece to it, but not. And that's not saying, he's not going to be as important, because he's absolutely important to this offense. But I think it's just you have to recalibrate how you use him.
And he's important enough, too, that you want to keep him out there. That's the thing is they never really seem to get that. And so he got used probably too much, at times in questionable ways. And that's the thing is, like, if you can take some of that work off him, I think you can actually get more. And look, the nice thing, too, is offensively, I think the way that they're going to approach this, Chip, is I think what you're going to see is the more that you have Jefferson out there and Cook and Thielen and Irv Smith times, the opposing team won't know what to expect.
Yeah.
So if you run Dalvin into the ground in the first 6 games and he has to sit out games 7, 8, and 9, that takes a chip off the field.
Yeah.
So, but I think these guys get that, and that's what I'm excited to see is how are you going to deploy these different pieces, not to just get a few yards, but to actually create matchup nightmares, which skill position wise, this team is capable of doing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's tricky because if you would say, okay, who's your most explosive offensive guys? Well, it'd be Justin Jefferson 1 and Dalvin 2. And so he's like, let's get the ball in those guys' hands as much as possible. And I agree with that, but it has to be sensible too, and understanding that injury history, punishment, that he's already shown that you can't just give him 28 carries a game and think that that's going to, last 17 games. And so, it's going to be fascinating to see how they handle his role, because I think everybody else, you sort of know what to expect. Right? Jefferson, we think he's going to get more.
Yeah, I've got some questions here.
Yeah,
I've got some questions. Irv Smith, I've got questions.
Smith, that's Dalvin and Irv Smith. Okay, Justin, we know they're going to throw him the ball a lot, right? Now how they employ him, move him around, different routes. That remains to be seen. But
right,
it's not going too far out on a limb to say he's going to be the focal point of the offense. But
no,
what is the distribution to Dalvin and Irv Smith? That's what I'm fascinated to see.
And the thing too is, and we've not seen this, we don't know this. This comes from a gut feeling of going to the O'Connell press conferences since he got the job. I think he's open to using skill that he feels that this roster has that the Rams didn't prioritize. I think he is, because like the Rams went through backs eventually, like, okay, this guy, and it's not that they didn't use him, but they certainly didn't have a Dalvin Cook type of talent. Yeah. The other one I'm curious about, don't laugh here. And look, I'm not saying that this guy's going to become a key piece, but originally I thought he might be cut. And now I think he will be used, is a guy like CJ Ham. I'm not saying he's going to be used a ton, but I think I think the fullback is something that O'Connell is open to deploying, where initially I thought that Ham was probably gone.
Well, when they brought in O'Connell, you're thinking, well, he's not going to keep a fullback, right?
Exactly.
But maybe he got here and evaluated and said, we didn't have that guy in the Rams, so we didn't necessarily need it. Now it's time to head coach and see what our talent is. I want to keep a fullback. I don't know.
Right.
But I think you're right. I think I do think they came in here with an open mind in terms of let's not prejudge any player or anything. Let's see what they can do. Let's see if we can fit them into our system. And Ham can be valuable in special teams. On it, he's such a good football player and smart and good locker room guy that if you're just keeping an extra whatever for your 53rd guy, it's like, wouldn't you keep a CJ Ham instead of because of his value and versatility?
Right.
But to think it's going to be exactly the way things were at the Rams. I mean, I don't think you can say that because the pieces are different here. I mean, you're right. They don't have a Dalvin Cook. So that the running back might be more of a priority than what they made him in LA. And so I think you have to be willing to adjust and adapt to what your players are too. I mean, they have to adjust to your system for sure, but it's not like you can just come in and start over the entire new roster. This is who you have, and you have to maximize it.
Yep. And I also think that O'Connell's smart enough to know that the Packers, Philly are going to watch Rams film, right?
Yeah.
Like when they're prepping for weeks 1 and 2, they're going to go back and watch McVay film and LaFleur certainly knows the system. I think what we're going to see is he's going to try and surprise those teams with a few change-ups. Here's the other thing. I've been giving this some thought of late. It's very geeky, but I'll run this past you. In a very nerd type way, what I've been thinking about is with what we saw, and I don't disagree with it, but it's clear that the spring camps, and I think into training camp, they are not going to tax players. What is the term? Classroom on the grass. Like we're trying to teach on the grass. Class on the grass. So like we're trying to teach them, but we're not going to tax them. And I believe McVay does this as well. I would not be surprised if O'Connell plays what could be a little bit of a dangerous game, but intriguing one. If we don't see any key starters in any of the 3 exhibition games, and that he literally tries to unveil, and if they do play, they ain't going to do anything that is a resemblance of, it's all going to be fundamentally as vanilla as possible. And then in the Packers game, while it might not be perfection, unveil things that they think the Packers, at least a few things that the Packers won't have seen on film from the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, there'll still be. I mean, you can. Those teams can scout the Rams and what they did, but I mean, that's a Sean McVay production, and O'Connell's going to have his own kind of stamp on it. I'm sure it's the same system fundamentally, but he's going to have his own wrinkles to it. And I don't know. With it'll be interesting to see how he does handle preseason because. On the one hand, you don't want to show anything. You don't want to get guys hurt. You want to be going to season fresh. But, Judd, this is a new system. And you want to have some live – and because they're not going to do anything like this in training camp, right? Yep. They're not – I mean, very, very rarely do they even – they're not going to tackle. They're not going to hit the quarterback.
I know.
How many in a training camp practice, there's, a couple live periods where they're going full, so –
Yep.
I'm sure he's wrestling with that, right? Too. I mean, okay. How do you? I would think
and I am too to a certain point because you play Jefferson for a series and he twists an ankle and now you look like a bumbling.
You big dummy!
Moron.
What are you doing? I
mean, Cook. What Cook's supposed to get? I'm wrestling with that too now because and look,
players might want it too, though. Players might want. I mean,
they might, but. But I mean, he's good. He is going to go full Baldelli here. Like we are going to get guys off their feet. We're going to be very careful. I'm just saying. I'm wrestling with this too.
Load management here.
Load management's going to be a thing, dude. It's going to be a thing.
Do you want the first time they go live, the opener against Green Bay?
Well, here's my question though. If you are going to not run anything that resembles, for the most part, what you're going to do offensively or defensively, schematically in the 3 exhibition games, how much do they get from very, very small doses of Like I think that they actually might do more real work in the joint practices with San Francisco here than
Yeah.
they will do in that game. I don't know, just a total guess, but this league is no question changed. Like
Yeah,
there's
but
no doubt about it.
the only thing about that is like even in those practices, you're not hitting quarterbacks. And
I know, but do you want your
are they
quarterback hit? That's the question now.
will they be tackling to the ground? Yeah, I wouldn't want them hit, but the one thing I do think about these preseason games and the value of them is I do think the timing and the speed, maybe it's not 100% like you're going to see in regular season, but it's more than you're getting in training camp. So I think there is value in like quarterback having to speed up his clock, right? Like understanding rhythm and all that. So I think there is some value. I don't think it's the end all be all. I mean, if a team struggles in preseason, I don't really get worked up. It's kind of like, spring training. It's like, okay, it's not.
Oh, come on. We do too.
Yeah.
Vikings offense looks rusty.
Terrible.
What was going on? What are they doing at TCO?
Those two series, they look bad. They're going to be doomed.
They're awful.
So, it'll be. I saw our friend Courtney Cronin just tweeted out earlier today that the Bears' new coach, his parting message was to his players. I think this wrapped up their minicamp today. Is you better stay in shape. You better come back lean and mean and bring your track shoes because you're going to do a lot of running at preseason camps or at training camps. So it's a little bit different message than what we heard from.
Oh yeah. Oh, because we are the nice touchy feely Vikings now that want to make everyone comfortable. I actually did like. Here's the thing, OConnell I liked because it might be a little bit laid back. But I also like the fact that I didn't think that there was a lot of bluster there.
Well, that's it.
Because I don't think players need bluster. Like I think they used to. I don't think young people in 2022 respond to bluster. Do you?
No, they don't need to be sold. They don't need to be fearing for their jobs. They don't need to be walking on eggshells about a new coach. And he went out of his way. What was the quote that a couple of players were reciting? It you're not going to win or lose a job in minicamp. So. Because we've seen it. A new coach comes in. I'm putting my stamp on this. We're going to be the toughest. We're going to chew kneecaps off. We're going to do all this. And so it just gets everybody like, oh my gosh, they're on edge. Where I think OConnell did the right approach and just said, you know what, let's just get to know each other. Let's put the system in. We'll do it half speed. Learn it more. This is more about mental than it is physical. I'm not going to beat you up and run you to death in these OTAs and minicamp. But with the understanding of you need to process this. You need to.
Well, that's the interesting thing too. And what happens because there's going to be undoubtedly a guy or two or five that don't come back prepared. That's my question: is what happens when they basically try to hit the ground running the first week of training camp, and some folks are like, "Oh man, I still don't understand" or something. That's where I'm curious. That's where you got to sort of juggle being the good guy with being the hey, September 11th. If this don't work, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I wonder. Does he have? I assume he does. He's a coach. They all have it. Like the OConnell fastball. I want to see what that. I want to see what that looks like. Buzzing him up and underneath the chin. Right. I want to see what that looks like when he slams his clipboard and kind of loses his temper.
I agree. Admonishes. That's what they used to call it. Do not report when the Vikings when Brad Childress admonishes a player. Do not report that.
Yeah, do not report that or injuries. Listen, there'll come a time, right? I mean, he's gonna lose his cool and melt down, or I mean, it's just every coach kind of has that switch, and but I don't think it's going to be something that we see often. I just don't think that's his personality, and I'm sure it'll be something that really has to push him to get him to do that.
I also sense that he's the type of guy who's going to need, and that this becomes important behind the scenes, Chipper, a very strong locker room and veterans. I think he's going to rely on, and this can be good or bad, he's going to rely on guys like Patrick Peterson holding guys accountable more than he has to, if that makes sense. And look, that's why it's important to keep a guy like Patrick around. Yeah. But there also comes a point where it probably crosses the line where the coach has to get involved and put his foot down and be sort of a bleep hole.
Well, and I think that's why, as part of the reason why we didn't see a whole lot of change, because I think me and you disagree on this a little bit. I mean, I think they have good, strong veteran leaders, that there's not a lot of nonsense that goes on in that. We can talk about culture or whatever, but I mean, I think Kendricks is good for locker room. Harrison Smith is a quiet guy. He's not a rah-rah guy, but I think if people watch him and the way he approaches it, you fall in line. Daniil's quiet, but I mean, I think respectful. Brian O'Neill has emerged as a
that's true.
A veteran leader. So
that's true.
I think they have a good group that will hold people accountable. I mean, Patrick Peterson obviously is very well respected. So I do think they have a good group that keeps everybody in line. So I don't think there'll be any issues there. It's just more.
Right, but what happens when a kid doesn't learn something or does something stupid, and now you've got to say, hey, dude, you know what? KOC ain't going to yell and scream at you, but I am. So that's where it gets, because you're right. Harrison Smith is the type of guy that you watch and you're like, whoa, true professional. But he's not really he doesn't strike me as a big talker. No. I think this is the type of room where he's going to need to emerge at least a little bit and say, this BS, we went through this in 2021. It can't happen again. Yeah.
And that's ideally, that would be your quarterback doing it. I don't think that's Cousins' strong suit at all. No. I mean, but I do think, like Aaron Kendricks, I think he'd get on people. Brian O'Neill. I mean, who the guy I think is? Dalvin's obviously very vocal, and I think Jefferson could kind of emerge in that role. I really think he has that personality. Dalvin definitely does. I think people look at Dalvin like, okay, he's kind of the big personality in there, and he backs it up by plays. But I think Jefferson, to me, that's kind of the next step is like, hey, man, this is your team, right?
Yes.
Take it over, be that presence in the locker room. And I think he has the personality and the obviously the respect to do that. But I think he has the personality.
I sense he's there too. In fact, I sense that he probably said a little bit more last year and wanted to say more than that. The other thing is he is one of the few guys on that team who has the overall, in my opinion, it factor.
Yeah.
Like he's just cool as hell, man. Like he is great. He's great at what he does on the field. He's cool off of it. I'm not saying that this team lacks some talent because it's got some, skill position wise, really good players.
Sure.
But I don't know if Dalvin Cook has the it factor that JJ does. And that's not to criticize Cook. He's a hell of a player. But there's an overall superstar quality to Jefferson that really stands out to me.
I think Dalvin has the it, but I just think Jefferson's a superstar player. Like he's one of the best in the league. And I also think he's quiet, but I think Daniil has that presence. Like
that's very
when he walks in a room, guys are like, okay, I'm paying attention to him. We'll listen to him. And when he was removed, you remove him from that equation when he's injured and he's off rehab. It's just not the same. When you're injured, you're isolated, and it's hard to be. If you're injured and not playing, it's hard to go in there and rally the locker room. Having him back, I think is going to be huge in that role.
That defense, if Daniil doesn't get hurt, I'm not saying that they're great, but they are nowhere statistically as buried as they became once he got hurt against Dallas. I mean, that changed everything, really, I think, from that perspective. So
yeah.
All right, Chip Scoggins, we will see you in a couple weeks. Enjoy your vacay next week, and there will be plenty more to discuss, I'm sure, because there always is. It's football.
That's right.
Once you get back. Talk to you later.
All right, brother. We'll see you.